The first shot of gunfire cracked through the night air as Molly Lawson clutched her meager belongings to her chest, running blindly through the darkness away from the burning remains of her family's homestead. Everything she'd ever owned was gone, consumed by flames and the greed of men who wanted their land. At 22, Molly had never imagined she'd be completely alone in the world, but here she was, her parents freshly buried and nowhere to call home. Montana Territory, 1876. The land was as unforgiving as it was beautiful, stretching endlessly under a vast sky that seemed to mock her insignificance. Molly had traveled for 3 days straight, her boots worn through, her stomach gnawing with hunger, and her heart heavier than the rocks that lined the dusty trails. She'd been headed toward the small town of Silveridge, where her father once mentioned having an old friend, though she had no name, no address, just desperate hope. As the sun beat down mercilessly on her 4th day of walking, Molly stumbled, her knees finally giving out beneath her on the outskirts of what she prayed was Silveridge. The last thing she remembered before the world went dark was the sound of approaching hoofbeats and a man's voice calling out to her. When she awoke, it was to the scent of coffee and the soft crackling of a fire. Molly's eyes fluttered open to find herself in a small but tidy cabin, lying on a simple bed covered with a patchwork quilt. "You're finally awake," came a deep voice from across the room. Molly startled, instinctively pulling the quilt up to her chin as she took in the man who stood by the wood stove. He was tall and lean, with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of a summer sky. His brown hair was too long, curling slightly at the edges, and a few days' worth of stubble covered his strong jaw. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice raspy from thirst. "Where am I?" The man approached slowly, offering a cup of water. "Name's Finn Jameson. Most folks around here call me Finn. Found you collapsed on the trail about a mile outside of town. You've been out for nearly a day." Molly took the cup cautiously, the cool water a blessed relief to her parched throat. "Silveridge? I made it to Silveridge?" Finn nodded, pulling a chair up beside the bed, but keeping a respectful distance. "You sure did, though you nearly died getting here. Mind telling me what brings a young woman to travel alone in these parts? It's not exactly safe." The events of the past week crashed over Molly anew, and to her horror, she felt tears spring to her eyes. She blinked them back furiously, refusing to appear weak before this stranger. "My parents' farm was attacked, burned to the ground by men who wanted our land. My parents didn't survive." Finn's expression darkened. "The Garrett gang?" Molly nodded, surprised. "You've heard of them?" "Everyone in 3 territories has heard of them. They've been terrorizing small homesteaders for the last 2 years. Finn's jaw clenched. "I'm mighty sorry about your folks. Thank you for your help, Mr. Jameson, but I can't impose. I need to find work in town. My father knew someone here. In your condition?" Finn raised an eyebrow. "Miss, forgive my bluntness, but you're half-starved, exhausted, and those boots of yours are more whole than leather." Molly felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I don't need charity." "It's not charity to help a neighbor." Finn stood, returning to the stove where a pot simmered. "I've got stew. After you eat, we can talk about what comes next." Despite her protests, Molly's stomach growled loudly, betraying her hunger. Finn brought her a bowl of hearty beef stew, and she couldn't help devouring it as if it might be her last meal. "Slow down," he advised with a hint of a smile. "There's plenty more." As Molly ate, she took stock of her surroundings. The cabin was simple but well built, with a main room containing the wood stove, a table with 2 chairs, some shelves with books, and the bed she currently occupied. Through an open door, she glimpsed what appeared to be another small bedroom. "Is this your home?" she asked between bites. "One of them," Finn replied cryptically, settling into a chair and stretching his long legs out before him. "I've got a larger place about 10 miles outside town, where I keep my horses. This is just where I stay when I've got business in Silveridge." "You raise horses?" "Among other things, I've got about 50 head of cattle and do some breaking and training of wild horses for the army." His expression softened slightly. "My father started the ranch, built it from nothing after the war." Molly set down her empty bowl. "I appreciate your kindness, Mr. Jameson, but I can't stay here. It wouldn't be proper." Finn chuckled, the sound warm and surprisingly gentle from such a rugged-looking man. "I'll be staying at the ranch. This place is yours until you get your bearings. Consider it payment for watching over my town property. But no arguments, Miss Lawson, Molly Lawson. Miss Lawson, you need rest and time to figure out your next step. I need someone to keep an eye on this place while I'm tending to ranch business. Seems like a fair arrangement to me." Molly wanted to protest further, but exhaustion was quickly overtaking her again. "Just for a few days, until I can find proper work. I won't be beholden to anyone." Finn's eyes crinkled at the corners. "I'd expect nothing less. Get some rest. I'll check on you tomorrow." True to his word, Finn departed after ensuring Molly had everything she needed, including a change of clothes he said had belonged to his sister, who had moved east years ago. The simple dress was a bit loose on Molly's frame, undernourished as she was from her journey, but it was clean and whole, unlike the tattered remains of her own clothing. For 3 days, Molly did little but sleep, eat, and heal. Finn appeared each morning with fresh supplies, bread from the town bakery, eggs, milk, and once a small package containing a hairbrush and some soap that smelled faintly of lavender. Each time he asked how she was feeling, inquired if she needed anything else, and then departed before she could feel too uncomfortable with his presence. On the 4th day, Molly felt strong enough to venture into town. She needed to find this friend of her father's, though she had only the vaguest information to go on, and, if she was honest with herself, she needed to find work soon. She couldn't continue accepting Finn Jameson's charity, no matter how he tried to frame it. Silveridge was smaller than she'd expected, just one main street with the essential businesses, general store, saloon, blacksmith, a small hotel, and a sheriff's office. Molly started at the sheriff's office, thinking an official might know of her father's old friend. Sheriff Wade Cooper was a gruff man with a salt and pepper beard and penetrating eyes that seemed to miss nothing. "Lawson?" he repeated when she'd introduced herself. "From over Montana way?" "Yes, sir. My father was Thomas Lawson. He homesteaded near Willow Creek." Recognition dawned in the sheriff's eyes. "Thomas Lawson. I remember him. Fought in the war, didn't he? Had a way with horses?" Molly nodded eagerly. "Yes, that's him. He mentioned having a friend here in Silveridge, but I don't know the name. I was hoping that'd be old Elijah Morgan. Owned the general store until about 2 years back." The sheriff's expression turned somber. "I'm sorry to tell you, Miss Lawson, but Elijah passed on winter before last. Pneumonia took him quick." Molly felt her last hope slip away. "Oh, I see. You look like you've had a rough go of it," the sheriff observed kindly. "What brings you to Silveridge?" Briefly, Molly explained about the Garrett gang and the destruction of her home. The sheriff's face darkened at the mention of the gang. "Those bastards, excuse my language, have been causing trouble all through the territory. Federal marshals are after them, but they're slippery as eels." He studied her. "So, you're alone now?" "Yes, sir." "Where are you staying?" Molly hesitated, uncertain how to explain her arrangement with Finn Jameson without it sounding improper. "A Mr. Jameson found me when I collapsed outside town. He's been kind enough to allow me the use of his town cabin while I recover." To her surprise, the sheriff's stern face broke into a smile. "Finn Jameson, eh? You couldn't have found a better man to help you. One of the finest in these parts, though he keeps to himself mostly." Relieved, Molly nodded. "He's been very kind. If you're looking for work, you might try the hotel. Mrs. Collins just lost her help to marriage last month and has been complaining about doing all the laundry and cooking herself." "Thank you, Sheriff. I'll do that." Mrs. Collins turned out to be a bustling woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. But she took one look at Molly's earnest face and hired her on the spot. "Room and board plus $2 a week," she declared. "Hours are long, work is hard, but you'll be fed and have a safe place to sleep. Can you start tomorrow?" Molly agreed eagerly, relief flooding through her at the prospect of honest work and independence. As she made her way back to Finn's cabin, her step was lighter than it had been in weeks. She had a job, a place to stay. She was no longer completely adrift. Finn was waiting at the cabin when she returned, sitting on the small porch with his hat tilted back on his head, revealing more of his handsome face than usual. He stood as she approached. "You look better today," he observed. "Got some color back in your cheeks." "I feel better," Molly admitted. "And I have good news. I found work at the hotel with Mrs. Collins. I start tomorrow." Something flickered in Finn's eyes, disappointment perhaps, but he quickly masked it with a smile. "That's good news indeed. Mrs. Collins is a fair employer, if a bit demanding." "So I gathered," Molly laughed softly. "I wanted to thank you, Mr. Jameson. You've been exceedingly kind to a stranger." "Finn," he corrected, "and it's nothing more than anyone would do." Molly raised an eyebrow. "We both know that's not true. People aren't generally so generous without expecting something in return." "Maybe I'm not people," Finn replied with a slight smile. "Or maybe I just know what it's like to be alone in the world." There was something in his tone that touched Molly, a hint of old pain that resonated with her own fresh grief. For the first time, she wondered about the story behind this solitary cowboy who had shown such kindness to a stranger. "Would you like to come in for some coffee?" she offered impulsively. "I made some earlier." Finn hesitated, then nodded. "I'd like that." Inside, as they sat at the small table with steaming cups before them, Molly found herself opening up about her past. She told Finn about growing up on the homestead, about her father's dreams of building something lasting, about her mother's beautiful garden that bloomed even in the harsh Montana climate. "They worked so hard," she said softly. "All those years of struggle, and in the end, it took just one night for it all to disappear." "What happened exactly?" Finn asked, his blue eyes intent on her face. Molly's hands tightened around her cup. The Garrett gang had been pressuring farmers in the area to sell their land. Some railroad company wants to put a line through, and the gang's been working as hired muscle, forcing people out. My father refused to sell. She swallowed hard. "They came at night, set fire to the barn first. My father ran out to try to save the horses. They shot him in the back. My mother—" Her voice broke. Finn reached across the table, his large calloused hand covering hers. "You don't have to continue. I was hiding in the root cellar. My mother pushed me in there when we heard the riders coming. I heard everything, her screams, their laughter. When they finally left, the house was already burning. I couldn't even give my parents a proper burial." Finn's jaw tightened, a muscle ticking in his cheek. "The Garretts need to be stopped. The sheriff mentioned federal marshals are after them. Been after them for over a year now, with nothing to show for it." Finn's voice held a bitterness that surprised Molly. Men like that understand only one language. A chill ran down Molly's spine at his tone. "You sound like you have personal experience with them." Finn was silent for a long moment. "They killed my brother 2 years ago. Similar situation, wanted our land for some scheme or other. Jamie refused to be intimidated. He was always braver than sensible." His voice softened with remembered affection. "He was checking fence lines when they ambushed him." "I'm so sorry," Molly whispered. "That's why I knew what had happened when you mentioned them." Finn's eyes met hers, filled with a shared understanding that no one else in their lives could fully grasp. "We're members of a club no one ever wants to join." They talked late into the evening, the conversation eventually turning to lighter topics. Finn's horses, Molly's skill with needlework, books they had both read. By the time Finn left, promising to check on her the next day before she started her new job, Molly realized they had just spent hours talking as comfortably as old friends. The next morning, Finn arrived with a small parcel wrapped in brown paper. "A going-away gift," he explained, with that hint of a smile that Molly was beginning to look forward to. Inside the package was a pair of sturdy new boots. "I noticed yours were beyond repair," Finn said, looking almost embarrassed. "Hotel work means being on your feet all day." Molly ran her fingers over the smooth leather, touch beyond words. "These must have cost—" "They're practical, nothing more," Finn interrupted. "Consider it an investment in Silveridge's newest resident." Molly's new life at the hotel was every bit as demanding as Mrs. Collins had warned. She rose before dawn to help prepare breakfast for the guests, spent the morning washing linens, the afternoon cleaning rooms, and the evening serving in the small dining room. Her hands grew chapped, her back ached constantly, but she never complained. This job, this independence, was her lifeline. Despite her exhaustion, Molly found herself looking forward to Finn's visits. He appeared every few days, sometimes bringing small treats like candy from the general store or a book he thought she might enjoy. They would sit on the hotel's back steps during her brief breaks, talking about everything and nothing. As the weeks passed, Molly noticed changes in herself. The raw grief began to scab over, not gone, but no longer bleeding freely. She put on a little weight, her face filling out from the regular meals, and she found herself smiling more, especially when a certain cowboy was nearby. "Why don't you come out to the ranch sometime?" Finn asked one evening as they walked slowly down the main street after Molly finished her shift. "Sunday's your day off, isn't it? I could bring the wagon in for you." Molly hesitated. Being alone with Finn in town was one thing, but visiting his home was quite another. Finn seemed to read her thoughts. "Mrs. Collins is welcome to come as chaperone if that would make you more comfortable. Though I promise my intentions are honorable. I just thought you might enjoy seeing the horses." "I would like that," Molly admitted. "But Mrs. Collins deserves her day of rest, perhaps another time, when there's a group going out that way." If Finn was disappointed, he hid it well. "Of course. The offer stands whenever you're ready." That night, lying in her small room at the back of the hotel, Molly found herself thinking about Finn more than she should. There was something about him, his quiet strength, his gentle manner, despite his obvious capability, that drew her like a moth to flame. But she had learned the hard way that life could change in an instant. Allowing herself to care for someone again felt dangerous. The following week brought excitement to Silveridge in the form of a traveling show. Posters appeared announcing Professor Willoughby's spectacular exhibition of wonders, promising musical performances, feats of strength, and exotic animals, all to be displayed in a grand tent at the edge of town. "Everyone's going," Mrs. Collins informed Molly as they prepared breakfast. "I'm closing the dining room that night. Nobody will be eating here anyway. You should go too, girl. Put on that blue dress of yours." Molly had saved enough from her wages to buy fabric for a new dress, a simple blue cotton that she had sewn in the evenings by candlelight. She hadn't had an occasion to wear it yet. "Perhaps I will," she said, trying to sound casual. "If I can find someone to go with." Mrs. Collins snorted. "That cowboy of yours would escort you in a heartbeat if you asked." "He's not my cowboy," Molly protested, feeling her cheeks warm. "Tell that to your blushing face," Mrs. Collins retorted with a knowing look. "The man rides into town twice a week when he used to come in once a month, if that. And don't think I haven't noticed how your face lights up when he appears." Molly busied herself with the biscuits, unwilling to acknowledge the truth in the older woman's words. Still, when Finn appeared that afternoon, she found herself mentioning the traveling show. "I was planning to attend myself," Finn said, his eyes brightening. "Would you allow me to escort you, Miss Lawson?" The formality made Molly smile. "I would be delighted, Mr. Jameson." The night of the show arrived crisp and clear, with stars scattered across the darkening sky like diamonds on black velvet. Molly took extra care with her appearance, pinning her honey-brown hair up in a style she'd seen in a magazine Mrs. Collins kept in the parlor. When she emerged onto the hotel porch where Finn waited, his expression made her efforts worthwhile. "You look beautiful," he said simply, offering his arm. Molly took it, noticing how he had dressed in his best clothes, as well as a clean white shirt under a black vest. His usual worn cowboy hat, replaced with a newer one. "You clean up rather well yourself." The show was everything the posters had promised and more. The tent was filled with townsfolk, the atmosphere festive and bright with lanterns hanging from poles. They watched a strong man lift impossible weights, marveled at a contortionist who bent her body in ways that seemed to defy nature, and laughed at the antics of trained dogs that danced on their hind legs. During the musical portion of the evening, when a woman with a voice like an angel sang songs of love and longing, Finn's hand found Molly's in the darkness. His touch was tentative, giving her every opportunity to pull away, but Molly found herself lacing her fingers with his instead. They remained that way for the rest of the performance, connected by that simple point of contact that somehow felt more intimate than any embrace. As they walked back toward the hotel afterward, neither seemed in a hurry to end the evening. Their pace slowed as they reached the edge of town, and by unspoken agreement, they turned toward the small creek that ran behind Silveridge. "I had a wonderful time," Molly said softly as they stood by the water's edge, the moonlight silvering the rippling surface. "So did I." Finn was looking at her, not the water, his eyes reflecting the starlight. "Molly, He was interrupted by the sound of rapidly approaching hoofbeats. They both turned to see a rider galloping into town, heading straight for the sheriff's office. Something about the urgency in the rider's posture sent a chill through Molly. "Something's wrong," Finn muttered, his hand instinctively moving to Molly's back as they hurried toward town. By the time they reached the main street, a small crowd had already gathered outside the sheriff's office. Sheriff Cooper stood on the porch, his expression grim as he addressed the townspeople. "Confirmed it was the Garrett gang," he was saying as Finn and Molly approached. "They hit the Thompson place about 15 miles south, burned it to the ground." Molly felt her knees weaken, memories of her own family's fate washing over her. Finn's arm went around her waist, steadying her. "Any survivors?" someone called out. "Mrs. Thompson and the children were in town visiting her sister, thank God. Thompson himself was shot, but he'll live. Doc's with him now." The sheriff's eyes scanned the crowd, landing on Finn. "Jameson, a word." As Finn stepped forward to speak privately with the sheriff, Mrs. Collins appeared at Molly's side. "Come along, dear. This is men's business now." "No," Molly said firmly. "This concerns me too. The Garretts destroyed my family's home as well." Mrs. Collins looked like she wanted to argue, but merely pressed her lips together in disapproval. Molly moved closer to where Finn and the sheriff stood, talking in low voices. "Headed southwest according to the ranch hand that escaped," the sheriff was saying. "That puts them moving in the direction of your property, Jameson." Finn's expression hardened. "Let them come. I've been waiting." "Don't be a fool," Sheriff Cooper hissed. "I've sent for the marshals. They should be here within 2 days." 2 days is plenty of time for the Garretts to destroy everything I've built," Finn replied. "I'm not sitting by while they burn my ranch like they did to Thompson, like they did to Molly's family." At the mention of her name, Molly stepped forward. "What's happening?" Finn turned, seemingly unsurprised to find her listening. "The Garretts are headed in the direction of my ranch. I need to get back." "I'm coming with you," Molly said immediately. "Absolutely not," both men replied in unison. "It's too dangerous," Finn added more gently. "If they do come to the ranch—" "I survived them once," Molly interrupted, "and I refuse to hide while more people suffer at their hands. I can shoot a rifle. My father made sure of that." "This isn't up for discussion," Finn said, his voice firmer than she'd ever heard it. "You'll stay here in town, where it's safe." Molly drew herself up to her full height, which still left her looking up at Finn. "You don't get to decide that for me." The sheriff cleared his throat uncomfortably. "I need to organize a posse. Jameson, get back to your ranch and secure it as best you can. We'll try to intercept the gang before they reach you." With a final warning look at Molly, Finn strode off toward the livery where he'd left his horse. Molly followed, ignoring the whispers of the townspeople around them. "You can't stop me from coming," she said as they reached the livery. Finn turned to face her, his expression torn between admiration and frustration. "Molly, if anything happened to you, and how do you think I would feel if anything happened to you?" she countered, her voice breaking slightly. "These men have already taken my family from me. I won't let them hurt anyone else I care about." Something shifted in Finn's eyes at her words. He stepped closer, one hand coming up to gently touch her cheek. "You care about me then?" Despite the seriousness of the situation, Molly felt a smile tugging at her lips. "I thought that was obvious." "Not to me." His thumb brushed her cheekbone softly. "I've been half afraid I was imagining the way you looked at me sometimes. How do I look at you? Like you might feel even a fraction of what I feel for you." Molly's breath caught. "And what do you feel?" Instead of answering with words, Finn lowered his head slowly, giving her every chance to step away. When she didn't, his lips met hers in a kiss so gentle it made her heart ache. His hand cradled her face, as if she were made of the finest porcelain, his touch reverent. When they parted, Finn rested his forehead against hers. "That's what I feel, and it's why I can't risk you coming with me." "It's why you can't stop me," Molly whispered back. Their argument might have continued, but the livery owner appeared, leading Finn's saddled horse. "Your mount's ready, Jameson. Sheriff says to tell you the posse will be right behind you. Just need to gather men and ammunition." Finn nodded, then turned back to Molly with a resigned sigh. "You're not going to back down, are you?" "Not a chance." "Then at least ride with me so I can keep you safe," he relented. "But you'll do exactly as I say when we reach the ranch." "Within reason," Molly agreed, with a hint of stubbornness that made Finn shake his head in exasperation. The ride to Finn's ranch was tense and hurried. They rode double on his horse, Molly seated before him, encircled by his arms as he held the reins. Despite the circumstances, she couldn't help but be aware of his solid warmth behind her, the strength in the arms that surrounded her. They reached the ranch shortly after midnight. It was larger than Molly had imagined, a sprawling main house built of sturdy logs, several outbuildings, corrals, and a large barn. A light burned in the bunkhouse, and as they approached, a man emerged with a rifle in his hands. "Jameson, that you?" he called out. "It's me, Eduardo," Finn replied, dismounting and then helping Molly down. "We've got trouble headed our way." Eduardo, a weathered man with a thick mustache, nodded grimly. "Figured as much when you rode in like the devil himself was on your tail. The Garretts. Got word they hit the Thompson place and are headed this way." Finn kept his hand at Molly's back as they walked toward the house. "This is Miss Molly Lawson. She'll be staying in the house. Molly, this is Eduardo Vasquez, my foreman." Eduardo tipped his hat. "Madam, wish we were meeting under better circumstances." Inside the main house, Finn moved with quick efficiency, checking doors and windows, retrieving weapons from a locked cabinet. "Eduardo, get the men ready. I want watches posted at all approaches to the property." As Eduardo departed to carry out the orders, Molly took in her surroundings. The house was surprisingly comfortable, with solid furniture, shelves of books, and touches that spoke of a real home rather than just a place to sleep. There were even framed sketches on the walls, landscapes and horses, drawn with considerable skill. "Did you draw these?" she asked, momentarily distracted from their predicament. Finn glanced up from checking a rifle. "Yes, just a hobby. They're beautiful. Thank you." He set the rifle aside and approached her, his expression serious. "Molly, I need you to understand something. If the Garretts come, it's going to be dangerous. I want you to stay in the root cellar beneath the kitchen. It's solid, built into the hillside." Molly flinched at the mention of a root cellar, memories of hiding while her parents died flooding back. "I won't hide again. I can't." Finn took her hands in his. "I'm not asking you to hide out of fear. I'm asking so that I can focus on protecting the ranch without worrying about you being caught in the crossfire. I told you, I can handle a rifle, and I believe you, but these men are killers, Molly, professional killers." His grip on her hands tightened. "Please, I just found you. I can't lose you too." The naked emotion in his voice pierced through Molly's resistance. She nodded slowly. "I'll stay in the cellar, but only until I'm needed. If things go badly, I won't hide while you fight alone." It seemed to be the best compromise Finn could hope for. He pressed a kiss to her forehead before returning to his preparations. The night passed in tense watchfulness. Finn's ranch hands, 5 men in total, took up positions around the property. Finn himself refused to rest, checking and rechecking defenses, occasionally stepping outside to confer with Eduardo. Molly made coffee and a simple meal from the provisions in the kitchen, needing to keep busy as much as anything. Dawn broke with no sign of the Garrett gang. As the morning wore on, some of the tension began to ease. Perhaps the sheriff's posse had intercepted them, or maybe they had changed direction entirely. "Maybe they're not coming here after all," Molly suggested as she and Finn sat at the kitchen table, both exhausted from the sleepless night. Finn shook his head. "They'll come. My land is valuable good water, prime grazing, and after what happened with Jamie, they've got a score to settle." "You never told me exactly what happened after your brother was killed." Finn's eyes darkened. "I tracked one of them, the youngest Garrett boy, found him drunk in a saloon over in Parkersburg. I beat him within an inch of his life and told him to deliver a message to his brothers. If they ever set foot on Jameson land again, none of them would leave alive." Molly reached across the table to take his hand. "You've been waiting for them to come back." It wasn't a question, but Finn answered anyway. "Part of me has. The part that still sees Jamie's face every time I close my eyes." His fingers laced with hers. "But now there's something else to consider." "What's that?" His blue eyes met hers steadily. "A future I never thought I'd want again. A future that might include more than just this ranch and my horses." Before Molly could respond, a shout came from outside, followed by the crack of a rifle shot. They were on their feet instantly, Finn grabbing his rifle from where it leaned against the wall. "It's them," he said grimly. "Get to the cellar, Molly, now." For once, she didn't argue. As Finn strode toward the door, she hurried to the trapdoor in the kitchen floor that led to the root cellar. Just before descending, she impulsively called his name. When he turned, she crossed the room quickly and kissed him hard. "Come back to me," she whispered against his lips. "I promise," he replied, then gently pushed her toward the cellar. Below ground, the root cellar was cool and dark, smelling of earth and stored vegetables. Molly left the trapdoor slightly ajar so she could hear what was happening above. The sounds of gunfire intensified single shots at first, then a volley that suggested multiple shooters. Through the narrow gap of the trapdoor, Molly could see only a slice of the kitchen and part of the main room beyond. She strained to hear voices or any indication of what was happening, but the thick walls of the house muffled the sounds from outside. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. The gunfire continued sporadically, sometimes intense, sometimes tapering to occasional single shots. Molly's hands clenched and unclenched with frustration and fear. The waiting was unbearable. Suddenly, the back door of the house burst open. Molly ducked down instinctively, then cautiously raised her head just enough to see through the gap. A man she didn't recognize entered the kitchen, a pistol in his hand. His clothing was dusty, and a bloody gash marked his cheek. "Jameson!" the man bellowed. "I know you're in here somewhere." Molly's heart pounded so loudly she was certain the intruder would hear it. When no answer came to his shout, the man began moving through the house, throwing open doors and overturning furniture in his search. "Your men are either dead or running," the man called out, "and my brothers are dealing with that Mexican foreman of yours. It's just you and me now." This, Molly realized with a chill, must be one of the Garrett brothers. She glanced around the root cellar desperately, looking for anything she could use as a weapon. Her eyes fell on a shelf of mason jars, preserved fruits and vegetables that Finn had stored for winter. Moving as silently as possible, Molly reached for one of the heavier jars. If Garrett came to the cellar, she'd have one chance to catch him by surprise. Above, the sound of breaking glass echoed as the intruder continued his rampage through the house. "You can't hide forever, Jameson. I'm going to do to you what you did to our Tommy." Footsteps approached the kitchen again. Molly tensed, jar in hand, as Garrett's boots appeared in her limited field of vision. He was standing right beside the trapdoor now, so close she could see the mud on his boots and the spurs that jangled with each step. Then, from somewhere outside, came the sound of renewed gunfire. Garrett's head whipped toward the window. "What the hell?" The back door crashed open again, and Molly heard Finn's voice, cold with fury. "Looking for me, Garrett?" Molly couldn't see either man now, but she heard the scuffle that followed grunts of exertion, the thud of bodies colliding, furniture overturning. A gunshot made her jump, the sound deafening in the confined space of the house. Unable to bear it any longer, Molly pushed the trapdoor fully open and emerged from the cellar, jar still clutched in her hand. The scene that met her eyes froze her in place. Finn and Garrett were locked in a desperate struggle, both men bloodied. Garrett's gun lay on the floor several feet away, apparently knocked from his hand. He had a knife now, the blade flashing as he slashed at Finn, who was trying to subdue him with his bare hands. Without conscious thought, Molly hurled the jar with all her strength. It struck Garrett in the back of the head, shattering on impact. The man staggered, momentarily stunned, giving Finn the opening he needed. With a powerful right hook, he knocked Garrett to the floor. "Molly, the rope by the stove!" Finn ordered, keeping his knee pressed into Garrett's back as the man struggled to regain his senses. Molly rushed to retrieve the coil of rope, bringing it to Finn, who quickly bound Garrett's hands behind his back. Only when the outlaw was securely tied did Finn look up at her, his face a mixture of relief and exasperation. "I told you to stay in the cellar. And I told you I wouldn't hide if you needed me," she countered, her voice shaking slightly. "Are you hurt?" Finn shook his head, though blood trickled from a cut above his eyebrow. "Nothing serious." The sheriff and his posse arrived just in time. They're rounding up the rest of the gang outside. Molly sagged with relief, the aftermath of fear leaving her legs weak. Finn stood, stepping over the trussed-up Garrett to pull her into his arms. She went willingly, burying her face against his chest, feeling the reassuring thud of his heartbeat beneath her cheek. "It's over," he murmured into her hair. "It's finally over." The following days passed in a blur of activity. The sheriff's posse had indeed arrived just in time, drawn by the sound of gunfire as they approached the ranch. 2 of the Garrett brothers had been killed in the fight. 1 was wounded, and the rest, including the one Molly had helped capture, were taken into custody to await trial. Miraculously, none of Finn's ranch hands had been killed, though Eduardo had taken a bullet to the shoulder and another man had suffered a minor head wound. The ranch itself had sustained some damaged broken windows, bullet holes in the barn and house, a section of corral fence destroyed, but nothing that couldn't be repaired. Molly stayed at the ranch, helping tend to the injured men and assisting with the cleanup. She sent word to Mrs. Collins explaining her absence, and the older woman surprised her by sending back a note that simply read, "Take all the time you need. Your job will be waiting when you return." On the 3rd evening after the attack, Molly found Finn sitting alone on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. She settled beside him on the wide bench, close enough that their shoulders touched. "Eduardo's fever has broken," she reported. "The doctor says he's going to be fine." Finn nodded, relief evident in his features. "That's good news. I don't know what I'd do without that cantankerous old cowboy." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the beauty of the sunset enfolding them. Finally, Finn spoke again, his voice soft. "I keep thinking about what you said that night in town, about how you wouldn't let the Garretts take anyone else you care about." Molly turned to look at him, taking in the strong profile limned in golden light. "I meant it. I care about you too, Molly, more than I thought possible after losing so much." He shifted to face her fully. "These past weeks, getting to know you, seeing your strength and your kindness, it's changed something in me, given me hope again." Molly's heart quickened. Hope for what? A future. A life that's more than just surviving. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining naturally. "I know it hasn't been long, and you might think it's too soon." "It's not," Molly interrupted softly. "Not when you feel like coming home after being lost for so long." Finn's eyes brightened at her words. "That's exactly it. When I'm with you, I feel like I've found something I didn't even know I was missing." He hesitated, seeming to gather his courage. "The thing is, Molly Lawson, I think I'm falling in love with you, and I'm wondering if there's any chance you might feel the same way." Instead of answering immediately, Molly leaned forward and kissed him, pouring all her feelings into the gentle press of her lips against his. When she finally pulled back, both of them were breathless. "Does that answer your question?" she asked with a small smile. Finn's answering grin was brighter than the setting sun. "I think I might need you to explain it again." Laughing, Molly obliged, wrapping her arms around his neck as his encircled her waist, drawing her closer. Later, as twilight deepened into night and the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, they remained on the porch, Molly nestled against Finn's side, his arm around her shoulders. "I should probably return to town soon," she said reluctantly. "People will talk." "Let them," Finn replied. "But you're right. I'll take you back tomorrow." He paused. Unless what? "Unless you'd consider staying, not just for now, but permanently." Molly sat up straighter to look at him. "Are you asking what I think you're asking?" "Probably doing a poor job of it," Finn admitted with a self-deprecating smile. "I had planned to court you properly dinners in town, buggy rides, the whole business. But after everything that's happened, I realize life's too short and precious to waste time." He took both her hands in his. "Molly Lawson, I love you. I want to build a life with you, if you'll have me. Will you marry me?" Tears sprang to Molly's eyes, but they were tears of joy. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." The kiss they shared sealed their promise to each other, tender and sweet and full of hope for the future they would build together. Their wedding took place a month later, a simple ceremony in the town church, with Sheriff Cooper giving the bride away, and Mrs. Collins dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief in the front pew. Eduardo, recovered from his wound, stood proudly as Finn's best man. Afterward, as they drove back to the ranch in the wagon bedecked with flowers by the ladies of Silveridge, Molly leaned against her new husband's shoulder. "I never thought I'd find a home again," she confessed. "After losing everything, I was so afraid to hope for anything more than just surviving day to day." Finn kissed the top of her head. "When I found you on that trail, I had no idea you'd end up saving me as much as I saved you." "I didn't save you," Molly protested. You did, from loneliness, from bitterness, from living half a life. He drew the wagon to a halt at the top of the ridge overlooking their ranch now. You came here with nothing, but you gave me everything. Molly looked out over the land that would be their home, thinking of all they had endured to reach this moment. I was so focused on finding a place to belong again, a physical home. And what did you find instead? Finn asked softly. She turned to him, her heart full to bursting with love. That home isn't a place at all. It's wherever we're together. Finn's smile was tender as he brushed a strand of hair from her face. A wise woman once told me that home is anywhere you stand, and she was right. As the sun began to set on their wedding day, painting the land in gold and crimson, Finn and Molly Jameson continued their journey down the hill toward their ranch, toward their future, a future built not on a place, but on the love they had found in each other's hearts. In the years that followed, the Jameson Ranch prospered. Finn's talent with horses brought buyers from as far away as San Francisco, and Molly's clever management of the household accounts ensured their growing wealth was wisely invested. They added a wing to the main house, planted an orchard that reminded Molly of her mother's garden, and welcomed their first child, a daughter they named Hope 2 years after their wedding. The Garrett gang's reign of terror became a distant memory as the remaining brothers served their sentences in federal prison. Justice had been served, allowing both Finn and Molly to truly put the past behind them and focus on the bright future they were building together. On quiet evenings, they still sat on the porch watching the sunset, often with little Hope between them, or, in later years, with more children gathered at their feet. And though the ranch became one of the finest in the territory, both Finn and Molly knew that their true home was not the land or the house, but the love they had found in each other's arms, a love that had begun when a cowboy offered shelter to a woman who had lost everything and told her that home was anywhere she stood.